Good morning. Good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? Hope you're all fit and well. How is the weather where you are? It's absolutely chucking it down where I'm sat right now. Can hear it on the windows outside. It is pouring down. Morning, Mark Whiting, who has just joined us over on Facebook. Ken Hatcher is in the same place, and he's got the weather as well. Morning, Ken. He's down in Wales. I'm in Surrey, and both got the same weather. Absolutely chucking it down. While other people are turning up, just very, very quickly. I very rarely watch these shows back. When the show is over and done with, I download it and I chop it up into little bits, primarily to get the morning monologue, which I then issue as a standalone film. Don't watch it back. Just chop the beginning off, chop the end off, put it out, and that's as far as I go. Yesterday, I watched the entire thing, and it was really good. And I'm not. Trust me, I'm not saying that I was really good. I'm saying that you were really good. The conversation yesterday was absolutely top notch. If you can match that again, you've set the bar very high, but I'd be very impressed. Now, Chris Ford is back in our fold, and he watched it on catch up because he was at the hospital yesterday. He watched it on catch up, and he came back and he said it was an effing brilliant episode. He did say that. He actually said effing. But thank you for that, Chris. Much appreciated. Yeah, it was a good chatty one yesterday, which I always appreciate. And with that in mind, I do actually have a discussion point for you on our question of the day, but I'll give you a bit of a warning about it. Obviously, this industry is built on training regimes and training matrices and competence cards and everything else. And you know, it is prescribed to us how you enter this industry. You come out of school, you come out of college or whatever, and you go and do this thing, and then you do that thing, and then you're allowed on site to do this thing and that thing, which is all fine. I don't have a major issue with it. But bearing in mind, you guys are all at the sharp end. You've all been there, done that, got the T-shirt. You've also seen newcomers coming into the industry, with their faults and their shortcomings and everything else. Question of the day, which I'm flagging up early. I'd like to know what your advice would be. Let's say you've got somebody 15, 16 years old. They've got a real they really fancy a job in operating construction equipment. The question of the day today is going to be literally, what would be your suggested starting point? And starting point, is there a specific course they should do? Is there a specific machine they should start on? Is there a specific set of skills that you think they need to acquire before anyone lets them loose on a construction or a demolition site? We'll come to it when we do the question of the day, but really interested in your answers. Dan Cullen's just arrived as well. Morning, guys. Better coverage. Worse than a landfill pit. Yeah, and the weather won't help. The weather will not help, unfortunately. We're still beaming signals through the atmosphere, which do tend to be a bit weather resistant, or a bit weather affected, rather. Weather impacted is the word I was looking for. Right, without further ado, I'm going to roll the intro, post the question of the day, which I've already kind of forewarned you about, and we're going to get this show on the road. A couple of things. I want to address this one first of all. Peter McKenna is here, and he says, morning, fresh off the hotline. How's you all? All fit and well here, Peter. As far as I know, everybody else is pretty fit and well. And I will tell you in advance, today's morning monologue inspired by Mr. McKenna, inspired entirely by a conversation we were having, was it a day or two ago, I think it was. And Peter, with the weather update from a bit further north, weather is fine and warm, but overcast here in Preston. It's tipping it down where we are. I'll come back to the question of the day in just a moment, Dan, but I do want to tell you what's going on the show today, because it is Thursday, the 5th of June. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition, the Lord High Chancellor of live streaming. In today's show, behind the build, delivering a Liebherr R9150 mining excavator. We're going to head down under to check out a Case 821G wheel loader. We're also heading off into the forest in America this time with John Deere, and golf course construction, again in America, Golf course construction made easy with Caterpillar rental equipment. Plus, in my morning monologue today, as I say, inspired by Mr. McKenna, cognitive overload and the loss of focus that could put operators and their colleagues at risk. There is no mystery machine today because I still haven't figured out exactly how to make it more fair and competitive. So for now, let me very quickly remind you of our question of the day, which looks like this. Yeah, I'm going to explain it again because I am looking for some real feedback here, fellas and ladies, if there are any ladies lurking in the background there. Imagine you have a young woman or a young man, 15, 16 years old, comes to you and says, I really want to be a plant operator. Where do I start? That's what I want to know. I want to know what you believe to be the ideal starting point for a rookie or a wannabe excavator. Wannabe operator doesn't necessarily need to be an excavator. I've already said we have training schemes, we have competence cards, and we also, I guess, we also have a tendency to put rookie operators on smaller, less complex machines, give them a chance to stand on their own 2 feet, stick them over in a corner so they're not getting in anyone's way, and they can gradually knock off the rough edges. But if a 16-year-old said to you, what machine should I start on and what should I learn first? What would your answer be? Would you suggest they jump on a dumper because it's fairly straightforward? Or would you suggest a mini excavator tucked over in a corner? Would you suggest a particular course? Is there a specific skill you think they need to acquire above everything else? Teamwork, perhaps? Is teamwork actually taught in competence card schemes? As far as I know, it probably isn't. But please let me know what would you suggest as the starting point for a rookie? Comment deleted. No idea what happened there. Okay, so Dan Cullen says, I believe they should start on groundworks at labour, understand how the industry and machines work on sites, listen to their peers, he says. Peter says, as a child watching at your local construction site and seeing what everyone was doing, not a bad. Good morning, guys. Last day of all-inclusive food and drink, 24/7 weather, 37 degrees. 37 degrees. I would melt in 37 degrees. But good morning to you, Gary. Enjoy your last day, my friend. Peter says, visit Diggerland. Listen, I actually think visiting Diggerland is a good idea. I think that's probably a slightly younger audience, though, in my opinion. Not that my opinion counts for a great deal. Apparently, Peter's question of the day answer was deleted. What the hell was it? What the hell was it? I mean, I'm seeing a full bunch of... I think I'm seeing a full bunch of answers here. Don't know. Dan Cullen, question of the day. Don't know what that means. Peter says, morning, Gary. I'm melting 22 degrees. Yeah, imagine Dan. Dan likes it freezing cold. Imagine Dan in 37 degrees. While you're all thinking about that and basically being jealous of Mr. Muirhead, let me do this. Ken Hatcher has chimed in on our question of the day. Get on a building site on groundworks for a few years and watch. Well, that's a pretty good start. Then get on the machine on site. Site work is the hardest by a mile. Civils is much easier. So, Ken, let me ask you. I think the watching is a very, very good idea. I realise there'll be a lot of impatient people out there. If you are determined to be on a machine, I'm sure watching will be endlessly frustrating because you can't get behind the levers. But what would be your suggestion? What would be, what would be your suggested first machine to put an aspiring operator on? Mini excavator? Site dumper? Wheel loader? Something bigger? Let us know. Love to hear from you. Skid steer loader, perhaps. Gary says, question A, I wonder how many schools offer it as an option. My guess is probably none. None whatsoever. We do seem to have lost sight of vocational skills as a proper option within schools. I think we're still too focused on sending people off to university, like we don't need builders and demolishers and what have you. But if anyone knows of any schools that are offering vocational skills in the construction or demolition field, I'd love to hear about them. There we are. Dan says, I often tell youngsters or people wanting to jump on machines, go to Diggerland a number of times, get to know machine operations levers, then go on site as a something. Ken Hatcher says, Bacco, if you can drive that, the rest is relatively easy. Yeah, you learn one machine and you're kind of learning two or three, aren't you? You're learning a loader, you're learning an excavator, and you're learning a backhoe at the same time. Good point, Ken Hatcher. Ground worker and asked to go on the machines. Is that still a viable option? I know that's and Dan clarifies. He says at tea times. I know a lot of people that's how they learned back in 15, 20, 30 years ago. Is that still an option now? If you've got somebody 16 and a bit years old, they're on site, they're pushing a broom or something like that, maybe fetching the bacon sarnies in the morning. If they said to you at tea time, can you teach me how to drive a machine? Are you permitted to do that? Can you do that? Or have the health and safety police knocked that on the head? Love to hear from you. Steve Williamson says, morning, question of the day. Any machine operator starting off from scratch should be a 3-year thing. 1 year on the ground. Just to be clear here, Steve has obviously given this an awful lot of thought. 1 year on the ground, getting shown how to change bucket teeth, oils, checks, etc. Know how to work a shovel, what it's like working on the ground and seeing the machine from the ground. Do that for a year and you get on a machine. First year, you should have a beacon or sticker that says trainee, as it is at the moment. A 1-day course is a guaranteed pass. Yeah. Absolutely. I do like the idea of a 3-year thing. I realise there will be exceptional talents out there. They've just got an absolute mastery of machines from day one. But I always think that, when you see people that have been particularly successful in business, the number of people that have done all the jobs on their way up. So by the time it comes to sit at the top, it doesn't matter what part of the organisation is a problem. They've been there and they've done it. And I do actually think, if you are literally stood there with a broom or a shovel in your hand and you're watching machines and you're seeing how the job is done from somebody that's actually doing it properly, you will take that on board. So by the time you actually get onto a machine, not only have you seen how it should be done, you've also seen it from your perspective of what to do and what not to do. Don't get too close to the machine, don't operate too close to people, and so on. Think that's a good one. Steve says a 3-year thing should be standard. Not too long, but it's a goal. Also sort the wheat from the chaff, wouldn't it? Really would sort the wheat from the chaff if you're not willing to put in 3 years of additional learning so that you can join as a fully fledged member of the team at 3 years time. Then maybe this is not the job for you. Ed Butler says, good morning or morning, Ed. A good morning to you indeed. Question of the day, Gary Muirhead says, I've got a young ADT operator on my site who's looking to get on the diggers. I've offered to help him in any way I can. So my question, Gary, and I tip my hat to you. I'm looking pretty damn splendid in this hat, but I'm tipping my hat to you. But are you permitted to do that? What are the rules and regulations? If you've got a young ADT operator and he wants to drive an excavator, are you at break time or lunchtime or out of hours, are you permitted to say, come on then, jump on and I'll talk you through it? Can you do that? I'd be interested to know. Dan says, pity they don't have magnetic signs, so when you're a newbie like a learner driver, put it on the machine so people can see it. That's not beyond the wit of man, is it? Surely we could do that. Ender O'Doherty just said good morning. Oh, good morning to you, my friend. Dan's here. I'm sure Dan will say hello to you in just a moment. Good morning, Ender. Peter McKenna says, bloody hell, it's non-stop this morning. Who the hell gave me the idea to start a campaign group? Trust me, if you'd have asked me, I'd have told you not to do it. I honestly would have told you not to do it. In the aftermath, not that I'm complaining, because it was a worthwhile exercise, much as yours is. In the aftermath of Didcot, when I was trying to, sell books to raise money for the families, the bereaved families and everything else, it became all-consuming. Literally to the point like, well, I've got a job to do that pays my wages, but I need to do this first. And it did actually, it does impact. I feel your pain, Peter. Steve says the only thing with letting young ones on the machine is dodgy. If anything happens, you are fucked. Yeah, that. I I don't know the answer to this. If, Gary, you've already said you've got one such person. If you were to go to your boss and say, look, what's a young person's name? Josh. Everyone's called Josh these days, aren't they? Young Josh here. He wants to have a go on the excavator. What do you reckon? And the boss says, yeah, but, you're in charge. And if Josh gets on the machine and clouts a dumper on hire or rolls the machine over, who is to blame for that? Is that on your employer's insurance, or is that you, Gary? Have you taken on responsibility for that? I wonder. Dan says they should be a consistent rate, beginner rate, £17 to £18 an hour across the board. I do think that progression, you're on £17, £18 an hour, but if you do this, you'll go to 20. You do this, you go to 25 or whatever it might be. I do think there's a lot to be said for that. Dan says, good morning to Enda over on Instagram. As you gain more experience, your rates rise accordingly. Yeah, absolutely. I'm all for learning someone, teaching someone, but I'd rather have permission from someone above. Yeah, and do you get it? Do you get it? I mean, one of my key concerns, and this relates specifically, I think, to teaching somebody how to drive a high-reach excavator. You've got lots of tier one contractors who want everybody to be highly trained, highly competent, a full deck of cards that they can flash at a moment's notice. But the moment you say to them, well, we've got somebody young here, we'd like to train them. Well, not on our site. No, you're not doing training on our site. Are you allowed to do that? On the sites that you guys are on? I know we've got a couple of people up in Scotland. We've got one in Gloucester, one in Wales, two in Wales, in fact. Are you allowed? If you were to put your head above the parapet and say, I want to talk this guy through. He's clearly got an aptitude. He's got an enthusiasm. He's a good young fella or a good young girl. I want to give them the benefit of my experience. Can you do it? Would your boss allow you to do it? Yes, I've been given the all clear from the site agent and foreman as I used to be a CPCS trainer and assessor. Well, two things. I didn't know you used to be a trainer and assessor, so fair play to you. Interesting, you've gone back the other way. I thought you did your time behind the levers and then you went to do that. I didn't realise you'd gone the other way around. But an interesting point that they've actually given you the nod. And do you need to be a former trainer and assessor to be allowed to do that? Talk about it amongst yourselves, because I have a show to produce and it's about to start. We've done the question of the day. We've got that, done that. So yes, the show starts now. Yes, opened a can of worms here, haven't we? I feel this is why a training machine cab should have a bigger cab or a cutout switch. The person learning the operation has control of the machine if they see something not right. Yeah, I mean, bearing in mind, we do have things like, what's the name of that? I'm struggling to remember the name of it. The remote control system. I mean, you could even do that. Actually have somebody stood outside with RemoQuip. So you stood outside with the controls, and the young operator is having a go. If they start to do something that you think is sketchy, press a button. You've got full control. A bit like the what do they call that in cars when you're learning to drive, where somebody's got another set of controls? Dual control. It's bloody obvious, really, wasn't it? Yeah, dual control. Could we not do that? I'm sure we could do that. I struggle getting a site to allow my assessor on site for 20 minutes. I bet you would struggle to get majority of young people on site. You're probably right. Ed Butler says, I agree. 3-year standard provisional when I was a kid. I was fortunate to grow up with a lot of big boys' toys to play with. If there was a key in it, look out. I'd be in it learning how to use it. See, I said this yesterday when we were talking about safety shield and stuff. I'm all for health and safety, but I don't honestly think there's much of a replacement for actually doing when it comes to operating a machine. Simulators are fine. I think they're very, very good and so on down the line. But I do actually think getting somebody on board and, knocking off the rough edges, ideally well away from people, I don't think that's a bad idea at all. Dan says, let's get the ball rolling. And Ender, yes, you can comment. Yes, Ender, please feel free to comment. And anybody else over on Instagram as well. Steve Williamson says a training machine should be like a rail excavator with a double cab. Totally. Dual control. Thank you for confirming that. I had a small brain fart there for a little while. Cognitive overload. I had which is precisely what we're talking about in the morning monologue. Peter, see how I weaved that in? Peter says, start them off on a simulator. They are absolutely amazing nowadays. They are indeed. Jim Turner is here as well. Jim, just to fill you in, I'm sure you can see this in the chat. Our question of the day basically is, what would be your suggested starting point for somebody coming into the industry anew? Do you have a particular skill that you think they should acquire first? Do you think there is a particular machine they should be guided towards before they do anything else? You see the chat, everybody's talking about it. One of the suggestions from both Ed and Steve, and I think there's a bit of agreement on that, start them on groundworks, and it's a 3-year program before they're actually let loose in a machine. What do you think on that? Love to get your feedback. Gary says, I was operating plant for about 20 years, was given the opportunity to be a CPCS certified by a company, APC Limited, to train out operators, but never kept it up. Well, there you are. But certainly know your stuff. That's good news. I'm not sure what that's about. But anyway, let's crack on, shall we? Let's crack on. We are, Liebherr R9150. Big old beast of a machine. And this is how they put one together.
Steve and the Mineco team have now scaled their business to a point in which they're contracting in that 150 tonne class market, which is exciting for both Mineco and Liebherr.
Today's handover is the start of a relationship working with Liebherr.
Both Mineco and Liebherr are underpinned by core values being our people are key to our success and the highest quality in everything that we do. We then have a dedicated team that will go and assemble the machine through the project execution phase. When that machine goes to work, Mineco will be supported by a raft of support resources based at the Mount Thorley branch.
Working openly and transparently with Liebherr has certainly been something that we've appreciated.
There you are. That's how you build an R9150. Let's have a look. Steve, you and I are in agreement. I think this is a fantastic idea. I don't know if anybody's ever actually done it. Have an excavator with dual controls. Trainer on the ground with a joystick around his neck and can show how to do it and stop the machine if anything goes wrong. Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. An external override. That's not. Surely not beyond the wit of man. Peter McKenna says, my youngest had a play on a mini digger that I borrowed to do some garden maintenance under strict supervision from anyone. Under strict supervision, anyone has the ability to learn. Generally, yeah. Listen, I've met some pilchards in my time. Dan says, morning, Mr. Turner. I often tell new operators to get on a dumper or a roller, get to understand the fall of the ground in construction and build knowledge and get on machines of your liking. If you're doing, not sure what that bit's about. Gary says, have you got your bag packed and ready for your amazing trip around the wonderful country of Italy? My bag isn't packed. I would be overstating things to say that my bag was packed, but everything that I need to take with me, clothing is all ready. It's just not in a bag yet. My drone is fully charged over here. A couple of cameras, they're fully charged. Audio gear is on charge at the moment. That's sat over there. But no, pretty much ready. I know it's a couple of days to go, but pretty much ready to go now. The only other thing that I've got to do is trying to work out exactly what bits. I mean, basically, I want to try and film as much as I possibly can. So I've got a power pack on order for my phone so that I can film between times and still have enough juice. But yes, almost there. Peter says he's drooling. He'd love to have a play on that beast, the R9150. Ask our friend, either of our friends actually, ask Steve Williamson or Ed Butler what it's like to drive a big Liebherr mining shovel, because they've both done it. Dan says it's just rates the rates, not be totally interested in the machine. You're just thinking on the next bigger rate. True enough. But then is that not what we all do? I didn't take my first job and think, well, that'll do me for now. Gary, never seen me in a hotter environment. Scotland is best ever. I did tell you he was a cold person. RRV excavator, a double cab. I'm sure you could do the same for a 360 excavator for training. The only issue with that is you're talking about, or what I'm talking about, maybe you're talking about something completely different. I'm talking about individual companies, so for whoever is currently employing Gary, Steve, Dan, Ken, whoever. So in my head, this is the companies. Is a company going to send back a machine, a perfectly acceptable machine, and say, can you whack a cab on this? Or a double cab on it, or are you just going to crack on and so? Which is why I think the idea of a remote control, remote equip style system, so you can actually be stood outside the machine. You'll be able to see everything they can't see as well. I think there's a lot to be said for that. Peter says, I learned to operate one just by jumping on and having a go. Didn't get any instructions, just have a play, and it was on a waste pile, loading a conveyor belt to a compactor in a building. So many variables. Indeed. Ed Butler said, I had a young lad the other day on CAT 444, just passed his test, never given a backhoe, was pushing up a muck pile with a back extender on the floor, on the front bucket crowded up. I couldn't bear to look, so I intervened and showed the young chap a few pointers. He never knew about the return to dig on the front loader, a simple function that the majority of experienced operators would know about. What are they teaching these lads? Obviously, I have my issues with training as it is. I think we all know, or I think we all agree that competence cards do not actually prove competence. I think one of the issues you've got is it doesn't matter how much training you do, and not just in construction, across the board. I said this the other day. I passed my driving test and was then sent to the north of England. Never driven on a motorway before, and I think that's another example there. You can learn the basics. What lever does what. You've got a pretty good idea of how to operate the thing smoothly and to keep it level and all those kind of things. It's only when you actually get out in the real world, and it's things like that. You've still got some rough edges to knock off, which is precisely why I'm talking about the starting point. Dan says, I hope you've got a big power pack. I'm cheating. I've got a big power pack. And I'm taking 2 phones plus cameras, so I should be okay. Okay, I had knowledge from when I was on the farm, but still not operated one for about 11 years. Yeah, let's have a look. Dan says, that's what I was thinking, Gary, an RRV machine style. Jim Turner, back on this. A youth organisation based around plant, civil engineering, groundwork. Show the kids how the machines work, what to check and why it's checked, and get them in the seat as early as possible. All it needs is radio-controlled kill switch, a very cheap and simple thing to fit onto any machine with an electric stop solenoid. With manual stop, it will require a bit more adaptation, but still doable. See, this is why Jim thinks these things through. Dan says, wow, exactly. Some of these trainers are handing out cars just so they get their money, ignoring the actual safety of working on sites. Hope that's wrong, but I kind of see where you're coming from. Yeah, Dan, someone sitting just behind you explaining what you're doing right or wrong. Yeah, that's how I've learned everything I've ever done, including this very thing that I'm doing now. As for grown-ups, start with a firm in the ground and try and get as much seat time as possible. Save up and book some training, then get your own ticket. See, mine of information, this. It really is. Thank you very much indeed for all your input. What do we got? Oh, yes, I know. We're going down under in just a moment with Case.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Yeah, Case 821G down in Australia, like this.
Oh, yeah, g'day. I'm Matt Allen, one of the proud owners of SA Tractors. We're the case dealer for South Australia and the Mildura regions. We're down here at the Wentworth Shire Council at their Varonga waste landfill. Just delivered them a brand new Case 821G waste spec wheel loader. They went out to tender for a new loader, and we basically put in an offer on a new Case machine. The specification was to go into their waste site, which is what we're at now. With Case, we had the ability to provide them a machine that was factory spec'd as a waste loader. Yeah, the Case spec wheel loader stands out compared to the others in the market. I mean, not many of the others do the waste spec from the factory, whereas the case one have the solid tyres, the guarding package, it's all factory fitted. One thing it also does have that differentiates it from the opposition is MIG mounted cooling package. It's basically a box cool design. There's no stacked radiators in it, so the reverse fan will blow the material out through one cooler, not through a stacked cooling package. So it's very important to have that in this environment.
Hi, I'm Ian Berylson. I'm with the Wentworth Shire Council. I'm the workshop fleet supervisor here. Yes, we've been dealing with the guys at SA Tractors for quite some time, getting a lot of our parts and equipment off of them. So they've been very helpful there in helping us out and getting the right items at the right time and in a good time frame. With the loader, it's got very good visibility around the cabin. Machine as a whole come from the factory with a auto grease system, which is a bonus for us. It's less time the operators need to spend doing their pre-starts on the equipment. So at this point in time, the Shire is running 3 case wheel loaders we've purchased through SA Tractors. The waste handler we've got here, it's got a bit more protection under the machine to protect the vehicle itself from any obstacles getting thrown up. The conditions it works in is from scrap metal to all sorts of rubbish, and items get flung up left, right and centre into screens, auto grease lines. So these are all being protected to prevent all the damage. Where on our normal wheel loaders, all this is still out in the open and not protected as much. So the case loader's got that extra protection on it to make the vehicle more reliable over the period of time we're going to have it. The case loader's a good machine, so it's turned out to be fairly good.
Question from Gary Muirhead, who says, is that a new chair you've got? Well, kind of, although it's been here for a couple of months now. There it is. I went and gave him a chair. I figured gamers tend to spend an awful lot of time sat in front of a machine or in front of a computer, so I went the same route. Can't say it's that comfortable on the rear end. Bit thin on the cushioning, but it looks all right. Let's have a look. Now, Chris Ford says this. Today, I have the man who taught me to drive 54 years ago having a day on my Komatsu 490. He won't be driving much longer as he has a terminal health issue, but I'm glad I'm repaying my eternal debt. Well, fair play to you, Chris, but fair play to... are we talking about your dad here? Is that who we're talking about? Or is it just somebody that you've known for that long? Dan Cullen says, our friend Nigel helps and shows some new operators the right way, but he said some won't listen, tell them to sod off. I paid for my card, so it's a difficult one. Some will and some won't listen. That's human nature, isn't it? Steve says there's something about an Australian accent talking about excavators. It's so calm. It is. Although, funnily enough, we are going off into the forest in a moment with some John Deere customers. Kind of like that accent as well. Get to that in just a moment. Ed says, I still get a bollocking off my demo partner from time to time. I can't believe that. I thought the two of you just had headsets on to wind each other up. Dan says, well, Chris, at least he's there with you, enjoying himself and being there. Indeed. The play, damn you. There we are. The man that learned me on farm equipment. JCB 2D, 3C Mark II Cat, 428. That's a chair and a half. Listen, there's only so much you can do with this. You know, when I've got a pretty fancy camera, as you can see on my hand here, got a pretty fancy light. The computer is pretty swish as well, but that's it. That's all I've got. So, you know, bearing in mind I'm sat here for hours and hours, you know, sometimes do 12 or 13 hours sat in this very spot. You kind of want a decent chair, don't you? Listen, my desk is secondhand. You know, I've got some real crap about me, but you want somewhere nice to sit, don't you? What was that expression? If you're going to spend money, spend it on a nice pair of shoes and a decent bed, because if you're not in one, you're in another. Well, in my case, it's a chair. Yes, I've said we're going off into the forest. We will in just a moment.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
let's want to take a moment. That's very quickly. I mean, he doesn't watch this. He'll be at work now anyway, so he won't get to see this. But got that comment from Dan, who says, it was my dad who's no longer here to see what progress and action enthusiasm I have for these. I'm sure he was aware, Dan. I'm sure he was aware. On the subject of dads, I am one. Last week, we attended a funeral of my eldest son's best mate. Tragic circumstances and everything else. So my son was one of the pallbearers. And I can honestly say I have never been quite so proud of Ollie, who is my eldest son. The pallbearing bit was part of it, but the bit that I literally just sort of stood back and just watched from afar because it was his friend and, we were just there as a support mechanism, I guess. The bit that really made me the most proud was partly the fact that he held it all together, but he was unbelievably supportive of his best mate's mum, who's obviously lost her eldest child, the guy's sister, the other pallbearers, all their friends. He was literally going from one to another to support them. And as I say, I don't want to go too far off at a tangent, but I can honestly say never been quite so proud of him. He may be popping around later. I will tell him. I haven't seen him since. So, yeah, there we are. Ed Butler says, I do believe every young, fresh operator that wants to learn should start off on a backhoe. Really is a fantastic bit of kit to gain experience on. There is a bit of a trend there. Chris Ford clarifies, it's not his father, just someone who I saw had an interest in plant and machinery, who was an owner and driver, allowed me to go with him at weekends and holidays until I was old enough to be let loose on my own. Well, fair play to him. Fair play to him. I tip my hat in his general direction. That's not enough of that going on. Not enough of that going on. And I do wonder if there is room for it now, given how fast-paced and dynamic and everything is to a deadline. Do we actually have time to, I'll take a step back and let somebody have a play for an hour or whatever it might be? Do we have that? Good morning to Mostly Diggers. Garvin's just joined us over on Instagram. And somebody called Crap Magazine. Okay, there's plenty of those about. That's probably not the one that I thought it was. Jim Turner says the other way is to offer help to a farmer in exchange for being taught how to operate any plant they have. That's how a lot of older operators got into plant, through the farming route. Always been an in route. I agree 100%. Steve says that runs through the family, Mark. You're an all amazing, kind, helpful and a good laugh and will help anyone with a problem or feeling down. Steve, I'm tipping my hat a lot, but yeah, cheers for that. Much appreciated. Much appreciated. Right, let's crack on. I promised you a trip into the forest with John Deere, and a trip into the forest with John Deere is what you jolly will have.
I love logging. I love that my family works with me, and that we get to do it together. I love the work. I love the machines. I love the smell of the chips when they're running through the chipper. I just love it, man. I really do. My dad taught me really everything I know out here, and everything goes along with being a good, honest man. My dad is probably the best man that I know. 81, I think, is when my dad started. In the last 30 or 40 years, everything has changed. From the equipment we do the work on to the wood we cut. It's changed so much. Volume is a big deal for us, so we got to haul a lot of loads to make the money that we need.
I have been impressed with John Deere, the way they kind of keep upgrading, staying up with technology.
We have basically all John Deere equipment now.
It's been reliable. That's good equipment. August, our local John Deere dealer, they're committed to keeping our downtime down.
When we buy a machine, we're not just buying a skidder or a shear or a loader. We're buying the service that goes with it. The support that we get from Doggett and John Deere is unmatched.
They've held up their end of the deal. They've been true to everything they committed to. That's a big part of our success, is working with people like that. We got a kind of a core group that's been with us for years and years, and that's what keeps the business going. Those are the guys that are my backbone. I'm just proud of the people that I have working for me and been able to get to where we're at.
Probably most proud when I see what my dad has done here. There was a lot of sacrifice. Just to see what his hard work, what he's grown this into, it makes me proud.
I want to do it again. My daddy makes grease. I love logging. Fair play, fair play. Steve says you're there more than any of my parents, and you and Fred have helped with so much. Keep it up, Steve. You can count upon us. Honestly, you can. We have fuck all better to do, basically. Ed Butler says, I really think we need to take a leaf out of the book of the Scandinavians, how their operator training is performed over there. I agree. I think we should take a leaf out of the Scandinavian book on a lot of things, like how to generally live your life. That would be a good place. Steve, who doesn't love forestry work? See, the weird thing is, I do. I've never had much of an exposure to it because, I grew up in a city and I'm on the outskirts of a city now. No interest in cranes, no interest in access equipment. I couldn't tell you what a scissor lift from a boom lift and so on. Forestry, yeah, you've got my attention. It's weird, isn't it? Dan says, totally agree with Jim. It's amazing the patience farmers have towards youngsters trying to learn. Look at Clarkson's farm. The young lad there is very knowledgeable. The difference there is he's actually teaching Clarkson. Jim says, if a kid is keen, I'll teach them to swap onto the ground or a dumper so they can get machine hours under their belt. Well, fair play to you, Jim. I'm not going to tip my hat, but you get the idea. Doggett, I thought we said Doggett, technical term for put it into work and get on with it. That too. Same here. I'd love a crack at some forestry work. Well, they have forests in Wales, don't they? I'm sure I've driven through a few. I'm sure they have them down your way. Right, we're going to be right back with our final film of the day, and then we're going to be talking cognitive overload, which is nowhere near as complicated as I'm making it sound. Back after this. Yeah, golf course construction, same as any other type of construction, I guess. Every job is different. Every day requires different equipment, different combinations of equipment, which is why this golf course construction company reaches out to cat rental.
What we do in most golf course constructions, we'll come up with an equipment list, and most of it has to do with our smaller equipment first. So skid steers, how many skid steers we're going to need, how many mini excavators we're going to need, even like a dozer or even a bigger excavator or something like that. When we put the bids in, we'll have the list already. And then once we get that list, then we'll go through and we know we don't need it all at once. So we have this starting here, this part of the month, and then 15 days later, we'll have another piece of equipment coming in, and then another piece. As the job excels, then we'll get more equipment in. And again, that's the reason why CAT has been here, because a lot of other companies, they would just want to, let's get everything in all at once. Well, we don't want to do that. We want to save as much money as we can as a company.
Dan says, I loved forestry work, used to cut 20 loads per day over the winter. Back home, all hand-felled and split, no machines, only a tractor pulling the trees out. Steve Williamson goes on and says, the best-smelling job is farming and forestry. Farming and forestry, lovely smell. What is the worst? If that's the best smelling, what is the worst? Is there an application, machine application? I'm never a fan of landfill. There's something not... I mean, I wonder if it's just a psychosomatic thing. That you're stood on crap, basically. I know it's waste, but, there's something about that smell that just kind of gets up my nose. Well, that's what smells do, I guess. The smell of felled hardwood and oak is one of the best smells ever. I used to sell oak trees to local carpenter's mill to make furniture and planks and tabletops. Did you really? See? Didn't know that you used to do that. Didn't know Gary was a trainer assessor. It's a learning curve, isn't it? Where they malt barley, bloody stinks. Yeah, I can believe that. Funnily enough, when I grew up in Battersea in South London. And there was a place up the road that manufactured candles. And I know now, if I walk around my local garden centre, they've got all those Yankee candles. And I must admit, I'm a bit of an addict for a candle. Oh, that smells lovely. But the manufacture of candles, bloody awful smell. Bloody awful smell. Awful place. That's about it for the main part of this morning's show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into my morning monologue, inspired by Mr. McKenna. If you can't stick around for that, then please stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. I hope to see you again very, very soon. But if you do have the time and the inclination, please, please, please stick around. I'll be right back in just a moment. But I do know this. Steve Williamson says, I don't know if it's just me, but the smell of cow dung getting spread in a field smells okay. Yeah. I used to fish with my dad. There's what's the name of the town? Pulborough, sort of halfway between me and the coast, sort of on the way down to Bognor Regis. There's a place called Pulborough, a little town. I always fancied living there, but there's a little bit there called Swan Meadow. There's a little, obviously there is a meadow. There are swans there. There's a little bridge over the river there, and it's always full of cows, always full of cows. And when you first arrive, it's like, oh, cow crap. Oh dear. After about 10 minutes, like, that's a lovely smell, that is. I don't know what it is. Don't know. The worst is landfill of human waste. Used to work on one and took weeks to get accustomed to the smell. It was awful. Yeah, I can believe that. I went to a tanning place once where they were basically using animal waste to power engines. That was not pleasant. Chris Ford. 4 candles? Yeah, 4 candles. Right, okay. I'm going to be right back after this. There's a story about England's World Cup winning captain, Bobby Moore. During a training session, the England coach, Sir Alf Ramsey, yelled, "Halt!" and everyone froze in their positions. Without looking around, Bobby Moore knew precisely where everyone was, his own players and opposing players alike. It's said that his exceptional peripheral vision allowed him to see and preempt attacks even before they began, and that's what made him the supreme defender. Jamaican sprinter Usain Bolt had a unique genetic makeup that contributed to his astonishing physical attributes, such as muscle composition and body structure. For example, he had a high proportion of fast-twitch muscle fibers, which are crucial for explosive speed and power. Well, the fact that he was 6'5" and made almost entirely of legs didn't hurt either. American swimmer Michael Phelps, his arms extended an incredible 80 inches tip to tip, giving him a freakishly large wingspan. He's also double jointed. His size 17 feet reportedly bend 15 degrees further at the angle than most other swimmers, turning his feet into virtual flippers. But in addition to these physical attributes, Bolt, Phelps and Moore shared one common ability that truly set them apart from their peers: focus. A single-minded determination that allowed them to be the world's fastest man, the world's greatest ever Olympian, and the first and only Englishman to hold the Jules Rimet trophy aloft. Each of them operated and excelled in their respective fields of endeavour without distraction, unlike the modern machine operator. Every morning as the sun breaks over the horizon, you climb into your machine, ready to face the day's challenges. But before the first bucket of earth is moved or the initial wall is brought down, your mind is already processing a deluge of information. Pre-start briefings and pre-start checks, toolbox talks, job-specific instructions, safety protocols, and the ever-present regulations that govern every single move you make. Your cab, which was designed to be a sanctuary of focus, has transformed into a command centre brimming with screens, gauges and alerts. Each display demands your attention, each beep and blink signalling something that might require your immediate attention. Simultaneously, your phone buzzes with messages from the offices. Jesus. Simultaneously, your phone buzzes with messages from the office, requests for updates, new directives, or questions about the data streaming in from your machine. It's a relentless influx of information, each piece vying for a slice of your cognitive bandwidth. This constant mental juggling act isn't supposed to be a part of your job, but it is a significant drain on your cognitive resources. Now, cognitive overload occurs when the demands of your mental processing exceed your capacity to manage them effectively. And it's not a reflection on intelligence or competence. It's about the human brain's limitations when faced with excessive simultaneous inputs. In your line of work, cognitive overload can manifest in subtle yet dangerous ways. You might find your attention narrowing, focusing solely on what's directly in front of you, while peripheral awareness fades. Reaction times can slow, and the likelihood of overlooking hazards increases. Studies have shown that after just 36 minutes of continuous operation, an operator's ability to detect hazards can drop by as much as 30%. After an hour, it can decrease by 40%. These aren't just numbers. These are real risks that can lead to accidents and injuries. The daily realities of your role compound this mental strain. You're expected to absorb and retain vast amounts of information, from the intricacies of structural engineering principles in demolition to the nuances of geology in construction. Understanding how a building might collapse or how the ground will respond to excavation isn't just theoretical, it's essential for safety and efficiency. Add to this the need to monitor your machine's performance, respond to real-time data requests, and adapt to ever-changing site conditions, and it's clear that the cognitive demands are immense. Now, the problem is physical fatigue is very easy to recognize. After a long day of operating heavy machinery, your muscles ache, your body feels heavy, and rest becomes a necessity. The signs are tangible, and a prompt natural response is take a break, get some sleep, recover. Mental fatigue, however, is more insidious. It doesn't announce itself with sore muscles or a pounding heart. It creeps in quietly, making it harder to concentrate, causing you to forget simple tasks or leading to irritability and mood swings. You might find yourself staring at the controls, momentarily unsure of your next move, or feeling overwhelmed by decisions that once came naturally. Because these signs are less visible, mental fatigue can go unnoticed and unaddressed, silently eroding your performance and your well-being. It's important to recognize that mental fatigue isn't a sign of weakness. It's a natural response to the demanding nature of your work. Implementing strategies to mitigate cognitive overload can make a significant difference. Taking short, regular breaks can help reset your focus and reduce mental fatigue. Prioritizing tasks and focusing on one at a time when possible can alleviate the strain of multitasking. Establishing clear communication protocols can minimize unnecessary interruptions, allowing you to maintain concentration on critical tasks. But ultimately, the solution to cognitive overload is the removal of interruptions, the constant barrage of incoming information, and the sheer volume of information you're expected to retain. Usain Bolt's reaction time at the 100-meter starting line would have been much slower if he was reading the latest message on his mobile phone. Bobby Moore's peripheral vision would have been greatly diminished if he was looking at an in-cab display rather than what was going on around him. And if he was expected to cart around all the knowledge you're expected to retain, it's highly likely that Michael Phelps would have drowned. Ultimately, the secret to success in sprinting, swimming, football, and equipment operation is probably not physical attributes. It might just be the removal of distractions and the ability to focus. Here's a weird aside, and I promise you this is absolutely true. So that monologue was inspired by Peter McKenna, was talking about cognitive overload as it relates to HGV drivers. He sent me a couple of links so that I could read up on it because I wanted to do that thing that I've just done. But I'm never quite satisfied, so I went and had a bit of a dig, and I ended up with I don't know, 15, 20 different sources, all with different references and different attributes and stuff like that. And when I sat down to write it, what did I suffer from? Cognitive overload. Seriously, I was sat there thinking, I've got all of this information. Where the fucking hell do you begin? And there was a point in that morning monologue which I thought was very, very alarming. Very, very alarming. Let me try and find it. Where is it? Yeah. You might find yourself staring at controls, momentarily unsure of your next move. Yeah. Have you ever done that? Now, listen, bear in mind what I do, and I'm only a hazard to myself and to your ears probably. I've done this now 900, well, this show, I've done 947 of these. There is a sequence to them. I've got buttons set up. I've got, triggers and on a fairly regular basis. I wouldn't say it was daily, but on a fairly regular basis, I will sit down, look at my Stream Deck, look at my keyboard, look at the controls for this show and go, oh yeah. Now that doesn't matter. You're all kind enough to give me leeway. So if I fuck up on a live stream, it's not the end of the world. Nobody's going to stop watching because I tripped over my words, which is just as well because I do it all the time. But if you have that momentary lapse on site at the controls of an excavator, wheel loader, dozer, that momentary, what was I doing? That's long enough to kill someone. Now, I will go over to the chat in a moment because it's been quite busy, and I can see that Garvin's talking to me over there as well, so I'll go and have a look at that in a second. We did a podcast, probably going back probably 6 or 7 years now, with one of the guys from Caterpillar. And Caterpillar have got systems built into some of their mining equipment where they've got a camera monitoring the eyes and the head position of an operator. So if the eyes start to droop or they start to nod or whatever, there's an alert, and there's an alert in the cab, but there's also an alert goes back to the head office to say this guy is clearly overtired, something needs to be done. How do you do that with cognitive overload? And just to be clear, if you're struggling with the word cognitive, think about it as your brain. Where your brain has just gone, I can't do anymore. My brain is full. And on that basis, Garvin's just said this: glad I don't work in Dublin anymore, but I often found after a long day in a machine, my brain was still at 100 on the hectic commute home. Speeding, lane chopping and changing, mentally exhausting. Yeah, exactly that. Reckless drivers and manicness of everyone racing home really adds to the burnout. I wonder, we often talk on this show about the stresses of work. I wonder, when you have those days where I'm so stressed, I wonder how much of that is actually stress and how much of it is your brain just going, no, hang on, no more. I can't literally have no room. I can't take on anymore. And if you go back, let's go back 20 years, 20, 30 years. You were sat behind the controls of an excavator. All you had to worry about was your levers, your pedals, and what you were looking out through the window. You think about what you have now. You've got all of that still. Admittedly, your levers have given way to joysticks, but you've now got 1, 2, possibly 3 screens. Possibly. You've got a mobile phone that is constantly ringing and flashing. You've got all of that information that you need to retain. You're being requested to give up-to-the-minute updates on site progress. You're getting phone calls from the office who are watching the telematics saying, we've just spotted a fault with the machine. You need to go and do this. All of that. So compare the brain capacity of an operator, or the brain drain on an operator of 20 or 30 years ago, who was basically got to focus on that to you guys today, where you're just bombarded with information and screens and requests and updates and regulations and legislation and Lord alone knows what else. As I say, I wonder how much of what we determine to be stress is not actually stress. It's just your brain going, no, fuck off, I can't deal with it anymore. I'm done. I'm done. So let me go over to the chat because it's been busy. Let's have a look what we got. We're back to fork handles for forks. Thank you very much indeed. Did you ever see, by the way, the reboot that Ronnie Corbett did with Harry Enfield? Have a look at it online. It's very, very good. They did like a modern update on it. Can't get his BlackBerry to work. Have you tried? And he's in a fruit shop. Have you tried booting it? Yeah, go watch it. Let's have a look. Steve says, question, Ed will know what I'm talking about. See if you ask someone, where do you want this material dumped? And you say, over there. Does that help much? Over there could be anywhere. Now, taken in isolation, somebody saying that, oh, all right, it marks them as a bit of a pillock. It's like my wife. If I can't find anything, it's on the side. The side of fucking what? That's okay. So that aside, but that is an additional bit of crap that your brain is now having to deal with. In isolation, somebody not being overly specific with their instructions, bit of a problem. On top of everything else you've got going on in your noggin, and all that I mentioned there about displays and gauges and all of those things, that doesn't even take into account where your brain is off, wondering what your wife is doing. Is the car going to pass its MOT? Where's the next pay packet coming from, and all that? So all of that, I wonder. Let's have a look. Steve says, sounds like me every day. I used to love my job, but it's draining me and starting not to enjoy it. Yeah, I wonder. And as I say, I mean, I know you had a bad day a couple of days ago, Steve. And I think we all do, I mean, I do on a regular basis, so no shame in that. But again, I wonder how much of it is what we would genuinely describe as stress, and how much of it is just that bombardment. And I think one of the issues that some people have is they fall victim to being too willing. Yeah, I wrote an article. We did a morning monologue on this a couple of days ago. This idea of the employer's dream and the employee's nightmare. If you're their go-to guy, train the new rookie, learn this new system, figure out how that works, and so on down the line. So not only have you got your own job, you're now also a trainer and a mentor. You're also chief tester of new products and new systems, all of which is just bombarding your head. Jim says, had a hire on the old Denby open car site, stacking processed human shite from the shite works once. That stinks a bit at first, but by snap time, you're eating your snaps surrounded by it without a bother. Really? I'm not sure I would, but I'll take your word for it. You've been there, you've done it. I'd love a day for safety people. I managed to have a day on the machine all day, see what it's like, because they really have no idea what it's like. I'm going to take that point and let's run with that, because that was kind of why I wanted to focus on that. Partly because I was intrigued, because Peter had mentioned cognitive overload, and it was a subject I knew nothing about. But also, I think if you are a good operator, a competent operator, possibly even a really good or a really great operator, I'm sure that there are many at sort of head office or regional office level that think that all you do is just get in the machine and go at it. And you can demonstrate to them that you're very productive and everything else. I wonder how many of them realize the other stuff that you've got to do. Now, I realize it's a bit of a leap to compare any digger driver with Usain Bolt. But focus. Let's be absolutely honest. If Steve I were to come along, and I know you love your GPS, but if I were to rip out all of the, I took away your mobile phone for the day, took away all of the various bits and pieces, and just said to you, go dig that thing right there. I guarantee you would do more today than you did yesterday, surrounded by all those bells and whistles and bleeps and flashing lights and fuck knows what else. Guarantee it. Because you're not stopping every 5 minutes like, oh, what do they want now? Oh, okay. Why is nobody addressing this? We talk about this industry has become markedly less productive. And it's become markedly less productive in the last 25, 30 years. Isn't it a coincidence, a weird coincidence, that the last 25 or 30 years where we've seen productivity decline has also seen the rise of mobile communications, mobile phones, email, social media? Connected, you think? Dan says some very good points here. I understand that many of that had it a few times on jobs when you're pushed into the deep end. Yeah. And again, I do keep coming back to that employer's dream, employee's nightmare. If you show the willingness and the ability to take on more, if you are really enthusiastic, if somebody says, Steve, as an example, we're switching over to this GPS system. You know full well that of an evening, Steve sat there on YouTube, right? How do you do this? Oh, I'll try that tomorrow. And I can do that. I didn't know I could do that. And not only will he have taken that all on board, filling up his brain again, but when he gets to site, he'll be taking his co-workers to one side and saying, well, you can do this. And if you do this with that, and then you press that button over. So you're also becoming a trainer and a mentor as well. But you've got all of that now logged in your brain. In addition to all of the crap that you were dealing with yesterday or last week. Funny that, they often say you can't use the phone on the machine, yet when they call, they expect an answer. Yeah, exactly that. Exactly that. Steve says, I have 3 machine operators here that call me daily to ask GPS questions, task questions, ground workers calling and coming to ask me what's next, how to, etc. I have management calling about concrete coming, what I need, what do you think about this, etc. I've got my own job to do, GPS to look at, calculations to make for certain jobs. Last week it got too much, 35 calls I had in one day while doing my own work. There you are, that there. I mean, it took me 900 words to say that. That right there, that's what cognitive overload looks like. And there are other comments here as well, but I'm going to skip ahead to this one because I think this is absolutely spot on. It should be a do not disturb sign on the machine, not a thumbs up sign. Yeah. I mean, if I used to have it to a degree, but if I was sat there concentrating on writing my morning monologue or writing an article or whatever it might be, and I've got somebody in my ear, can you show me this? How do I do that? Have you done this? What about that? Can I press this? Can I do? In the end, I'm probably throwing the keyboard out the window. In no other walk of life. Imagine, just off the top of my head, imagine you take your car in to get your tyres changed, right? Pretty straightforward. Those tyres off, those tyres on. But what if, while you're stood there waiting for your car to be done, that guy is on social media, he's answering the phone, he's dealing with requests, he's also showing the junior how to do a certain job. So the job that should have taken him maybe 15, 20 minutes, you've now been waiting an hour and a half because of all the distractions. You'd do your nut, wouldn't you? And yet, that is the lot of a lot of people working on site. Hang on a minute. Let's have a look. Told you, Butler. No wonder I was giving you shit. Steve says, it's frustration that gets me. I actually give a shit. There's your problem. Again, I'll go back to the title, which I was quite proud of. I have to say, that idea of employer's dream, employee's nightmare. You do give a shit, and all the time you give a shit, you're basically put upon. A lot of others don't care, but seem happier. I bet they do. Why should I worry about that? Steve's got this. You know what? I could go home from here. You know, I could go home from here, sit down and teach myself how to use this new system we've got. Or I'll let Steve do it. I'll go in on Monday morning and say, "Oh, Steve, I can't work it. How does it work? Or can you do it for me?" Yeah. Best thing to do, Dan, is put it on silent, then check it to filter the calls. When the black hat has walked the length of the site 2 or 3 times, they usually relent. Sometimes takes more than 2 or 3 times, I think. I've managed without GPS, no problem, but the guys on the ground wouldn't have a clue on levels, how to set lasers, how to do this and that. They rely on me way too much. Even that, you know, let's getting away from GPS. I've just touched my candle. That was a mistake. I've got black fingers now. Even going beyond that, if you're driving an excavator, which I know some of you are, you're not generally just doing your job. You're also telling the ground workers, do this, do that, don't come here, don't do that. In addition to which, there's every possibility that you're telling the person on the tipper or the dump truck or the dumper, come in here, go out that way. You're part doing other people's jobs as well. And all of that is a drain on your mental resources. Like years ago on site, they used profiles and nothing was as bad. All this technology getting fucked up, projects aren't as productive. Yeah, absolutely. And therein lies an issue. And I do wonder if anybody's looking at this. Think about it. I am going to wash my hands while I'm doing this. I'm going to use a screen wipe for it, which is probably not the best idea. But think about from a domestic standpoint, right? So imagine probably your grandmothers who, in all likelihood, didn't have a freezer. Not in the way that we've got a freezer now. You know, we all have they may have had a freezer box in their fridge, you know, little thing like that. So in order to prepare a meal, they would probably have to go out pretty much on a daily basis and buy the ingredients, you know, the fruit, the veg, the meat, the fish, whatever it might be. When it came to washing their clothes, it was a manual process. They would literally get their hands on, get their hands wet, and they would wash the clothes. To dry the clothes, it required going to peg it out on a line and then bringing it back in and ironing it and everything else. When you finished having your dinner, they used to go out to the sink, nice big glug of fairy liquid, and they'd wash it up, dry it up, put it away. We have big freezers. We have food deliveries, we have washing machines, we have dishwashers, we have tumble dryers. All of which has made, now I mean, my wife works, so it's basically freed her up from that to go and do something else. But it has made, domestically, it's made us more productive. I would argue that in our industry, the advent of technology in many instances has actually made us less productive. Discuss that amongst yourselves. What do we got here? Question take. Bit late. Become a black hat. You don't need to know what you're doing. Failing that, buy a bag of spanners. The rate is usually better than the machine. There's some hard, dirty work involved. There you are. But our question of the day was starting point in all things construction related. And just to clarify, I'm not a business owner or a supervisor. I'm a machine operator. And yeah, and there. Russell Mashevsky has just asked where we're from. I'm just on the outskirts of London in the UK. Whereabouts are you, Russell? It feels a lot like this cognitive load and overload flows downwards. It's like with the advent of telematics, remote communications, mobile phones, emails, WhatsApp groups, and everything else. Those on high, those that are sat, you know, possibly wearing a suit, sat in a head office, can basically just summon the information. You are required to collect it, but they are required, or they require you to feed them information. As Steve has said there, he's not a business owner. He's not a supervisor. He's not a squishy human set of telematics. He's a machine operator. His job title is machine operator. He is paid to operate a machine, not to teach the site systems, not to act as a standalone set of telematics. Russell Mashevsky just says, what's your thoughts on immigration? Don't have a problem with it. That's probably not what you want to hear, given the fact that that's your first question. I don't have a problem with it. Chris says, unfortunately, I'm a dinosaur. Never use GPS on site. Go stand in the corner, Mr. Ford. Given all that we're talking about here, I wonder if that's not such a bad thing. And I'm saying that as somebody who is a fan of all that technology and GPS can bring, the additional precision and everything else. But we often talk about precision, and admittedly, if you're using GPS and you're using it properly, complete with all the driver aids and everything else, you should only be you should be digging precisely, so you're not over digging. You're saving fuel. You're not digging more than you need to, and then have to fill it in again, and so on down the line. So, on paper, you should be more productive. But if that system and all the systems built around it require you to do stuff that you weren't doing before, is it making you more productive, or is it making you less productive? When you enjoy what you do, it isn't a bind. You actually look forward to being busy and having problems to solve. I don't actually think, I don't even think it's a matter of being busy. I am at my best when I am busy. When it's 10 to 9, 10 to 10, and I haven't quite finished my morning monologue, and I'm literally just bash. I love that. I used to love it on magazines. You're going down to the wire, and we've got to get this magazine out, and I love that. Absolutely love it. What this is, and if anything, it's kind of the opposite of busy. It's just your brain being filled up with useless shit that you don't really need or shouldn't have to deal with. Russell Mashevsky says, I'm from New Zealand. All I see online is the bad immigration stuff. I was wondering if it was as bad as online is saying. The problem is, Russell, and thank you very much indeed for your question. I'm glad you were asking for the right reasons. Online can be misleading. And I think it depends where you get your information from. And I am, funnily enough, I'm going to be talking about kind of related to this. I don't know if anybody's seen this in the States. I'll come back to the main crux in a second, but I want to do a quick detour. There's been quite a few of these ICE raids over in America, and they've the ICE agents have descended on demolition and construction sites and hauled off non-documented workers, possibly for extradition and so on down the line. Now, lots and lots to cover on that. The reason I'm mentioning it, obviously, we're based in the UK. The live audience here is very much UK based. The people that watch this show the most are actually in America, because they watch it on catch up when they come online. A couple of things I want to talk about. One is, as far as I'm concerned, there is a demolition and construction brotherhood. So if somebody is struggling, regardless of whether they're here in the UK, in New Zealand, in Australia, or in America, I think as members of that industry, we all feel it together. I also have a question mark. Listen, I'll make it very clear. I think Donald Trump is the worst thing ever. I do genuinely despise the guy. But his big thing on migration with the States was that the borders were too open, and they were allowing in terrorists and rapists and murderers, and the people coming in were eating the cats and eating the dogs. They're raiding construction sites. If you are working on a construction site, regardless of your actual status of being in that country, if you're earning a living, does that not undermine this whole notion of people coming into your country and sponging off the system? And we have exactly the same thing here. One of the hardest things we went through, you'll be familiar, I would guess, Russell, with the notion of Brexit, where the UK rather bizarrely decided we don't want to be part of the European Union anymore, and we voted to go off on our own. But a lot of the people that were working here in the demolition and construction industry were Bulgarians and Romanians and Poles and Russians and Ukrainians and so on down the line. At the point that we voted to leave the EU, a lot of them went, well, we're not particularly welcome here anymore, and they buggered off home. What happened to the construction and demolition industry? It suffered as a result. It's a crazy, crazy situation. So as far as I'm concerned, if somebody is crossing a border, if they're going from somewhere to New Zealand to get a job in construction and to work and to pay tax and to contribute to the building of your roads and your bridges and your highways and everything else, fair play to them. And I would say exactly the same here, and I would say exactly the same in America. That's my thoughts on all things related to immigration. Steve says, I'm going to call while on holiday abroad, asking when I'm coming back as the guys are useless. Could you imagine calling management while they're on holiday? I mean, there'd be an investigation on it, wouldn't it? How dare you? How dare you call? And what does that say? If the guys on site are useless, and frankly, I'm sure some of them are, but that is not your problem, A, you are a machine operator, but what does that say about their recruitment process? You are phoning a guy while he's on his hollybobs, sunning himself, beer in hand, pina colada possibly, flower behind his ear, and you're phoning him up and you're basically saying to him, we've recruited us, not you, we have recruited people that can't do their job. Help us out. What a weird admission that is. Steve says, to be honest, in 4 years I've worked GPS, it's only gone down for one day. I can guarantee 100% I'd go out, do anything without GPS. I'm getting it done right the first time, yeah. But it is another thing that you have to take care of. And it has made jobs, even things like, I was thinking this before I came online today. Things like where we've got cameras, 360-degree cameras or whatever it might be. We used to rely on banksmen. And, in demolition, you'd have a spotter, particularly if you were working near an edge or something like that. You've gone too close or whatever it might be. You would have a person that was doing that for you. It's you now. We've given you, rather than fixing the problem and rather than keeping on the people that need the jobs and everything else, we have given you a system which is one more thing for you to worry about and one more thing for you to concentrate on. And going back to all that I said about the need for focus, is that a good way? Surely as an operator, you are at your very best when you are. I realise that's not how you operate an excavator, but I've got a thing in front of me here. But when you're literally, I mean, I am at my best on this. Phone's off, lights are off, and I'm just like. I'm sure you're the same. Not what's the camera doing, what's the GPS doing, what's the heads-up display doing, how's the oil pressure, what's the fuel levels like, do I need to charge the machine? It speaks for itself, surely, doesn't it? Since GPS technology, site engineering, they fuck up many jobs. Yeah, sometimes it works. Had this conversation yesterday. There's no such thing as a completely infallible system, I guess. Roads were completed on time. There was not 1,000 paperwork to read to get projects moving. Yeah, if anyone was looking at the, I have actually reached out to the guy that wrote the article that I shared on the WhatsApp group yesterday to see if I can get him to talk about it. There is work to do. I tell you what, let me get it up on my screen because I can't remember the exact details. Basically, there's a 3.3 mile piece of railway that they want to build linking Portishead to Bristol. As I say, 3.3 miles. Where is it? Yeah, okay. So there is a planning There is a planning application to build a 3.3 mile train line from Bristol to Portishead. This is a report on planning application. In total, the application and all the associated documents come to 79,187 pages. If you printed that out end to end, that's 14.6 miles of paperwork, more than 4.5 times the length of the line that is to be reinstated. Within those nearly 80,000 pages, there are 17,912 devoted to the environmental statement. That's 3.3 miles of paper trying to determine if rail transport is good. There's also 1,174 pages devoted to back technical appendices, 215 pages to newts, and 1,810 to vegetation management. Good freaking Lord. Going back to Russell in New Zealand, thanks, that made a lot of sense. If they're contributing to make things better for everyone, help the economy, why kick them? Indeed, why kick them? And as I say, I am planning to write something. I haven't started it yet, and I may be distracted by something else. But when I was watching this unfolding on online yesterday about these ice raids over in the States, imagine if we had that here. You know, I don't know where you guys are working at the moment. Obviously Steve's up in Scotland, Ed and Ken are in Wales, Dan's in Gloucester, Chris is up in sort of Derby thereabouts. Imagine you just look out the window. Let's say you've got 5 or 6 guys working on site with you, and one of them is brown or black, and you're busily working away. They're doing their thing, you're doing your thing, and a couple of cars pull up, and there's some heavily armed people wearing masks to conceal their identity, and they basically walk on the site, uninvited, get your brown, black colleague, throw him in the back of a van, and drive off with him. What do you do? How do you feel? And even setting aside, whether they're documented, undocumented, whether they're there legally or illegally, they are there doing a job. And part of their job is working in conjunction with you guys. If you're on an excavator, maybe this guy was on one of the dump trucks or the dumper or whatever it might be. And now all of a sudden, you can't do your job. May talk about that tomorrow. I need to get it clear in my head. Dan says, P.S. I've never used GPS, only go by laser level with the guy saying bit up, bit down. Yeah. Chris says, immigration coming or going. Who gives a fuck? People come here to earn more, better standard of life. People leave here for the same reasons. Yeah. Yeah. Listen, I saw a thing yesterday which was talking about immigration. And the point that they were making was, imagine you're stood on the White Cliffs of Dover and you're looking out to sea, and there's a dinghy with, I don't know, a dozen migrants making their way across the channel. And you're stood there thinking to yourself, oh, they're going to come here and they're going to sponge off the system, and they're going to steal my child's school place. They're going to steal a hospital place that my mother needs, and so on down the line. But behind you, you're looking out to sea. Behind you is the UK, where there are millionaires and billionaires who are not paying tax. There are native white people that were born and raised here, 10th generation English, Irish, Scottish, Welsh, who are here, who can't be asked to get out and go and earn a living every morning. They'd rather sponge off the system. And your problem is with the women, children, and men in the boat. Should your problem not be with those behind you who are already raping the system? Listen, I know I'm a bit liberal in my thinking. I know I'm a bit left-leaning and everything else. But there's an American politician. No, it wasn't a politician, actually. It was Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett, who used to be the richest man in the world, who basically said if all of the billionaires in America were to pay what they should pay in tax, nobody would need to live below the poverty line. But they don't. They never have, but now they're friends with Mr. Trump, and they have even less reason to pay tax because he's set up a system so they don't have to. Should your problem not be with those that are already bending the rules rather than those who may or may not, who may actually come here and make a genuine contribution. Russell Mashevsky says, you've got a really good point. Thank you very much indeed. I do my best. Final thing for the day, one less ground worker to worry about. Just joking. You'd be like, what the hell just happened? Yeah, you would. You would. And bearing in mind, I mean, some of the instances that have happened in the last couple of days with these ICE raids on American construction sites, not only does the company, the company's been raided or a site's been raided and these people have been whisked off, not only do the companies, like, where are they? Where did they go? Who's got them? Are they in prison? Are they in a holding cell? Are they halfway to El Salvador? But not only are the company unaware, their families. 5 o'clock rolls around and you're thinking, I better put dinner on because my husband will be home in a minute. He's had a hard day out on site. 5 o'clock becomes 6, becomes 7, becomes 8, becomes 9. And you end up, hang on a minute, excuse me, don't suppose you've seen my husband, have you? Oh, well, he was here, but some masked men carried him off. Did nobody tell you? No, they didn't. Steve says, I'd be standing there shouting, take me. I don't know what El Salvador's like. I mean, I know the prison doesn't look like a bundle of laughs, but El Salvador might actually be quite nice. I wonder. Anyway, people, that's more than an hour and a half. I do appreciate it. Listen, you've been on good form this week. Really good interaction yesterday, even better today, I think. Covered a lot of ground. Go and empty your heads. You heard what the advice was. Take a break from time to time. Don't think about all the things everywhere all at once. Clear your head a bit. Take up fishing would be my recommendation, but it is the close season at the moment, so that probably wouldn't help you much. But next time you're feeling stressed, actually ask yourself, am I stressed or have I just got too much shit in my head? And do I need to offload some of that crap? Be interested to hear from you. I'll be back tomorrow, 10 a.m. for yet more of the same. Till then, everybody have a fine and splendid day. Hope you don't get the rain. I think I've got most of it, but hope you don't get the rain. I'll see you tomorrow. All the best.